Water cold. Pure water. A young girl's desperation. Keisha's voice cracked as she called out, weaving between open market stalls like a thread in a Kent cloth. The across sun burned mercilessly above her head, scorching the tops of wooden umbrellas and reflecting blindingly off plastic canopies. Her bare feet pounded the dusty ground, worn soles tough from years of street hustling. On her head, a blue basin wobbled with sachets of clean water, barely cool anymore. She was 10, maybe 11. Her birth certificate was one of many things that had disappeared when the floods hit Jamestown 3 years ago. What remained was this: her mother's wheezing breath at night, the unpaid medical bills, and a dream, no, a need, to keep the woman who raised her alive. At the end of a side street, she paused to adjust the basin. A pair of secondary school girls passed by in their pressed uniforms, chatting in English. Keisha stared for a moment. One day, she would wear that uniform too. She would speak big English and read storybooks under mango trees. But dreams didn't pay hospital bills. She turned onto a narrow alley behind Kamanto Market, the air thick with the stench of spoiled Kenki and engine oil. Vendors shouted over each other, drivers honked even when the road was clear. Someone jostled her, and a sachet of water flew from her basin, bursting like a water bomb. "Hey! Watch where you're going, small girl," a meat vendor growled. Sorry, sir," Keisha muttered, bowing her head. She couldn't afford to lose another sachet. Each one sold meant 20 paise was earned. She needed at least 60 sadies for Mama's next hospital visit. So far, she had 22. She had counted it in the dark last night, listening to Mama's chest rattle like old iron sheets in a storm. Auntie Nana, the kiosk owner, had warned her that government workers would soon clear out illegal structures. If they were caught. God, no. Keisha whispered, stepping around a pothole filled with black water. Her lips were dry, her stomach growled. "Small Keisha. Bring me 2 pure water." Keisha broke into a run, quickly handing over 2 sachets. The woman paid with coins and didn't ask for change. Keisha smiled faintly. That smile faded when she reached the open clearing by the clinic. Mama wasn't outside today. That meant the pain was bad. Inside the makeshift shack, a room built from plywood, old zinc, and tarpaulin, Keisha found her mother curled under a ragged wrapper. Her forehead glistened with sweat, her breathing came in sharp, shallow puffs. "Mama," Keisha whispered, crouching beside her. Her mother's eyes fluttered open. "Keisha, how was the market?" Keisha forced cheer into her voice. "Good. I sold almost everything. I got you malt and bread." Her mother's eyes fluttered again. "You're a good girl, too good for this world." "Don't talk like that," Keisha's voice cracked. "Life is like a thread," her mother said. "Sometimes it breaks before the cloth is done." "No, Mama. I won't let that happen." Keisha dipped a rag into a plastic bucket and dabbed her mother's face. Outside, a bell rang from the compound, a warning. The health workers were coming for an inspection. They might remove anyone without official papers or formal shelters. Keisha kissed her mother's hand. "I'll find a way. I promise." She left the shack and walked back toward the street. As she moved, her fingers clutched the thread around her neck, the necklace Mama said never to lose. It had a tiny, dull bronze pendant. Keisha never thought much about it, but Mama swore it had once belonged to someone important back in town. The world was moving fast. She had to run faster. The sun had mellowed into an orange hue, casting long shadows across the dusty ground of Jamestown. Evening came with its usual chorus of fried oil popping from roadside yam sellers, voices of tired traders bargaining over the last tomatoes, and children chasing each other barefoot through the narrow alleys. Keisha sat beside the wall of Auntie Nana's shop, legs pulled to her chest, eyes on the pot of boiling water resting on 3 stones. Her fingers nervously twisted the hem of her yellow dress. She was still thinking of her mother's words. Life is like a thread, sometimes it breaks before the cloth is done. She didn't want Mama's thread to break. Not before she grew up. Not before Mama saw her in a school uniform. Not before she could repay everything. "Here," said Auntie Nana, walking over and handing her a plate with plain rice and a small spoonful of stew. "Eat quick. I don't want to hear you crying in the night again from hunger." Keisha looked up, surprised. "Thank you, Auntie." Nana huffed, adjusting her bright headscarf. "Your mother was good to me once. When I first came to Accra, she helped me mend clothes for food, before the sickness caught her." Keisha nodded, unable to speak as she dug into the food. Nana watched her for a moment, then sat beside her. "Keisha, you ever wonder about your father?" Keisha paused, spoon halfway to her mouth. "Mama said he died before I was born." "Yes, that's what she told me too. But..." Auntie Nana lowered her voice. "There's something you should know. That necklace you wear, it's not ordinary." Keisha instinctively touched the thread around her neck. "Why? What's wrong with it?" Nana squinted at the pendant. "I've seen something like it before. When I was still young, I used to wash clothes for a rich woman in East Legon. One day, her daughter wore a chain just like that. When I asked, she said it was custom-made by some big man, a powerful man. Said it was only made for his daughters." Keisha blinked. "But Mama gave this to me." "I know," Nana said. "And I don't mean to confuse you. But maybe, just maybe, your father was someone you don't know about." The words rang in Keisha's ears. Could it be? Mama had always avoided questions about him. And now this strange coincidence with the necklace? Nana stood. "Eat. And don't talk about this with anyone. Accra has ears. Big ears." Keisha nodded slowly. That night, as the stars blinked over the zinc rooftops, Keisha lay beside her mother, who coughed in her sleep. She held the pendant between her fingers, staring into the dark. My father, a powerful man? Or was it all just a story? The next day. The next day began with more blistered feet and heat. Keisha woke before dawn and walked miles to fetch 2 buckets of water. She came back to find Mama shivering, her lips pale, her blanket soaked with sweat. "Mama," she whispered, crouching quickly. "Should I go to the clinic?" Her mother shook her head weakly. "No money, don't go. I just need to rest." But Keisha wasn't convinced. She made up her mind, she would go to the pharmacist, the one by the Trotro station, and beg. Before leaving, she knelt beside her mother. "I'll be back soon. Don't be afraid." Her mother's fingers brushed her cheek. "Be safe, Keisha." She rushed through the city, clutching a small plastic bag with the last of their coins. At the pharmacy, the woman barely looked at her. "You again," the pharmacist said. "I told you yesterday, medicine is not free." "Please," Keisha whispered. "Just 1 dose. I will pay next week, I swear." The woman sighed and glanced around. "You think I own this place? If I give for free, I'll be sacked. Even just cough syrup, no." Keisha's eyes welled up, but she didn't let the tears fall. She bowed and left the store, clutching the empty bag. She sat on a broken curb, staring at her dirty feet. What could she do now? There was nothing left to sell. No help. No hope. Behind her, a car honked loudly. Keisha turned just in time to see a long black SUV roll past, its wheels gliding smoothly over the potholes that broke everyone else's cars. Through the tinted windows, she caught a glimpse of a man in a dark suit, his face unreadable, his eyes shielded by sunglasses. He looked like he belonged in another world. A world where sickness had no power and children didn't cry for cough syrup. Keisha looked down at her torn dress, then at the pendant. That world was a million miles away. But somehow, it was also connected. The theft. Later that evening, back at the compound, she knelt beside her mother, wiping her face with a wet rag. "Mama, do you remember who gave you this necklace?" she asked. Her mother's lips twitched. "Your father. He was not a bad man, but he couldn't stay. He had a family. A different life." "Was he rich?" Keisha whispered. Her mother didn't answer. Keisha leaned forward. "Mama. Was he the reason you said I must never lose this chain?" Her mother's eyes fluttered. "Keisha, promise me. Never steal. Even if you're hungry. Promise me." Keisha swallowed. "I promise." But inside, her heart screamed. Promises didn't buy medicine. As she lay beside her mother that night, the familiar panic grew louder. Tomorrow would come again, and with it, more dust, more rejection, more sickness. Something had to change. She had to find a way. No matter what. The breaking point. The sound of coughing had become a daily horror, echoing through the shack like the chime of a death bell. Mama lay on the mat, curled into herself, shaking uncontrollably. Her skin had taken on a sickly yellow hue, her lips darkened and dry, her breath shallow. Keisha sat by her side, watching with a torn heart as her mother winced in pain. "Mama," she whispered, dipping a cloth into a rusty bowl of water and pressing it to her mother's forehead. "You're burning up." Mama opened her eyes slowly, her voice cracked like old cloth. "Keisha. I can feel it inside. It's like fire." They had visited the government clinic again just 3 days before. The doctor had scribbled furiously on a sheet of paper, murmuring to the nurse about advanced liver damage and possible internal infection. "Your mother is severely ill," he had told Keisha outside the exam room. "She needs lab work and antibiotics. But these things cost money. And if it is what I think, we might need to refer her for surgery. Without treatment, she might not have much time." The words slammed into Keisha like a hammer. The doctor handed her a sheet listing the medication and tests. At the bottom, in capital letters. 5,000 Ghanaian cedis deposit required. 5,000 cedis. Keisha hadn't even seen 500 cedis at once in her whole life. Now, with her mother groaning softly beside her, she sat on a wooden stool, legs bouncing nervously. A small bowl of half-rotten oranges and plantain chips rested beside her, her inventory, her last hope. She had been trying to sell them for the last 2 days, standing under the sun at the bus stop, near the mechanic shops, near the school gates. But no one was buying. No one even looked. She'd offered to fetch water for neighbors, but many had their own children to send. She tried washing plates at the buka but was told she was too small. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. This morning, she got up early. She packed her few goods in a tray and moved down the street. Her legs were tired, her heart ached. The sun was only rising, but her shoulders already drooped with the weight of desperation. She tried smiling. "Madam, please, I have fresh oranges. Only 50 pesewas. Please buy one." One woman in a green lace blouse frowned at her. "Go and read your books. Always children disturbing everywhere." Keisha swallowed the sting and moved on. She approached a gate where a man in a calf-length tan waited for his taxi. "Uncle, please, chips. Just small." The man shook his head. "No change." She walked more. Her eyes burned. Her mother's cough echoed in her memory. She passed a line of fancy shops. She saw other children playing, eating biscuits. But she wasn't like them. Then she saw him. Mr. Kofi. He stood tall and confident, dressed in a navy suit and expensive leather shoes. His phone was at his ear, his voice low and powerful. He was laughing softly. On his wrist was a gold watch, and from the back pocket of his trousers, his wallet sagged heavily. Keisha froze. He crossed the road, his back to her, walking slowly. Her eyes went to the wallet, thick, stuffed, almost falling out. She heard her mother's cough again. She imagined the 5,000 Sadie note. Just one chance. Her hands trembled. Keisha's heart hammered against her ribs. Mr. Kofi's wallet, a thick promise of salvation, seemed to call to her. Mama's ragged cough echoed in her mind, a desperate rhythm driving her forward. Her fingers twitched, a battle raging within her. Promise me, Keisha. Never steal. Mama's voice, weak and fading, fought against the raw, desperate need. But what was a promise against the burning fever that consumed Mama, against the doctor's grim prognosis of 5,000 Sadies? Promises didn't buy medicine. Promises didn't save lives. She took a shaky breath, her gaze fixed on the swaying wallet. He was still walking, his back to her, oblivious. This was it. The moment. With a surge of adrenaline, Keisha moved. She was a ghost, a blur of yellow dress on the dusty street. Her small hand, surprisingly quick, reached out, hooked onto the edge of the wallet, and tugged. It was heavier than she expected. For a split second, it resisted, caught on something. Panic flared. Then, with a soft plop, it was free, landing in her grasp. She didn't wait. She didn't look back. Her bare feet, usually slow and tired, flew over the rough ground. She darted into a narrow gap between two stalls, disappearing into the chaotic labyrinth of the market. The scent of spoiled kenki and engine oil was a familiar shield, a welcome anonymity. She ran until her lungs burned, until the side stitch in her stomach was a sharp, persistent pain. Finally, she collapsed behind a stack of empty crates, gasping, the stolen wallet clutched to her chest. Slowly, carefully, she opened it. Her eyes widened. A stack of crisp, colorful Sadie notes stared back at her, more money than she had ever seen in her life. There were also smaller notes, coins, and a few official-looking cards with Mr. Kofi's picture. Her gaze snagged on one, a business card. Mr. Kofi Dapa, CEO, Dapa Holdings. CEO. The powerful man Auntie Nana had spoken of. The pendant around her neck felt heavy, suddenly significant. A wave of nausea washed over her. She had done it. She had stolen. The guilt was a bitter taste in her mouth, but beneath it, a desperate hope flickered. This money, it was enough. More than enough. Mama would be all right. The return. Keisha arrived back at the compound, breathless and disheveled, the wallet hidden under her dress. The market was winding down, the evening air thick with the murmur of tired voices. She found Mama exactly as she had left her, curled under the wrapper, her breathing still shallow and ragged. "Mama," Keisha whispered, her voice trembling. She pulled out a few large Sadie notes, smoothing them with shaking hands. "Look, Mama. I sold everything. And more. Enough for the clinic. Enough for the medicine." Mama's eyes fluttered open, hazy with fever. She saw the money, but her gaze was unfocused. "Keisha, where did you get this?" Her voice was barely a whisper. Keisha hesitated. The lie tasted like ash. I found a new place to sell. Many people bought. They were very kind." Mama's hand, hot and dry, reached out and gently touched Keisha's cheek. "My good girl, always finding a way." A faint smile, weak and fleeting, touched her lips. The lie stung, but the relief in Mama's eyes, even in her fevered state, was a powerful balm. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Keisha was at the clinic, the precious 5,000 Sadies clutched tight. The stern-faced receptionist accepted the deposit, her expression softening slightly at the sight of the large sum. Mama was admitted, and a nurse immediately began administering antibiotics. For the first time in days, Keisha allowed herself to breathe. Mama was safe. For now. But the stolen wallet weighed heavily on her conscience. It sat hidden beneath her sleeping mat back at the shack. She had taken only what she needed for Mama, but the rest, it was still there. And with it, Mr. Kofi Dapa's business card, his picture staring up at her. Could he be her father? The powerful man Auntie Nana spoke of? And if so, what did that mean? What did she do with the remaining money, with the knowledge of her theft? As Mama slowly began to respond to the medication, her fever subsiding, Keisha found herself torn. Her mother was getting better, a direct result of her desperate act. But the guilt gnawed at her, a relentless worm. Mama had made her promise. And she had broken it. One evening, as Mama slept peacefully, her breathing much stronger, Keisha took out the wallet again. She looked at Mr. Kofi Dapa's face. He was wealthy, powerful. He wouldn't miss this money, would he? But what about the principal? What about her promise? She thought of Mama's words, life is like a thread, sometimes it breaks before the cloth is done. She had stopped Mama's thread from breaking. But at what cost? The ethical dilemma was a heavy burden, weighing on her small shoulders even more than the basin of water she carried each day. What was the right thing to do now? What would Mama want her to do? Keisha knew she couldn't keep the wallet. The more Mama recovered, the heavier the secret felt. Mama had always taught her honesty, even when their stomachs ached from hunger. The money had saved Mama's life, but it had come at a cost to Keisha's own integrity. One afternoon, while Mama was resting, Keisha took the wallet out again. She counted the remaining money, carefully putting back the exact 5,000 cedis she had used for Mama's deposit, along with a little extra for the malt and bread she'd bought. The rest, a considerable sum, she placed back inside the wallet. She pulled out Mr. Kofi Dapa's business card. CEO of Dapa Holdings. It felt like a clue, a piece of a puzzle. Auntie Nana's words about the necklace, about a powerful father, swirled in her mind. Was this her chance to learn the truth? Or was it just a way to return what wasn't hers? Keisha decided to do both. She would return the wallet, and she would try to find out about her father. It was a terrifying thought, walking into the world of Mr. Kofi Dapa, but Mama was getting better, and Keisha felt a new strength budding within her. She had saved Mama, she could do this. A frightening journey. The next morning, with Mama feeling much stronger and even sitting up to eat, Keisha dressed in her cleanest, though still patched, yellow dress. She tucked the wallet and the business card deep inside her pocket. I'm going to the market, Mama, she said, trying to keep her voice even. I'll be back soon. Mama smiled, a real smile this time. Be careful, my little butterfly. Keisha's heart fluttered, a mix of fear and determination. She walked to the Trotro station, the address on the business card leading her to a part of Accra she'd only ever seen from a distance, the gleaming towers of East Legon. The buildings here were tall and modern, reflecting the bright sun. Cars, unlike the rusty Trotros, glided silently on smooth roads. People in smart clothes hurried by, their faces serious. Keisha felt like a tiny, misplaced bird in this world of glass and steel. She found the building, a towering structure with Dapa Holdings, etched in elegant letters above a polished glass door. Her palms were sweating. She pushed the door open, stepping into a cool, air-conditioned lobby. A stern-faced receptionist sat behind a large desk. Good morning, Keisha mumbled, her voice barely audible. The receptionist looked up, her eyes scanning Keisha's worn clothes with a hint of disdain. Can I help you? Keisha pulled out the business card, her hand trembling slightly as she held it out. I need to see Mr. Kofi Dapa. It's important. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. Do you have an appointment? Keisha shook her head. No. But I found something of his. His wallet. At the mention of the wallet, a flicker of surprise crossed the receptionist's face. She picked up a phone and spoke in low tones. After a moment, she looked at Keisha. Wait here. The wait felt like an eternity. Keisha sat on a plush chair, her bare feet barely touching the ground, trying to appear calm while her stomach churned. Finally, a door opened, and a man emerged. It was Mr. Kofi Dapa. He looked just as she remembered, imposing and impeccably dressed. His eyes, no longer hidden by sunglasses, were a deep, dark brown, and they held a curious intensity. He looked at her, then at the receptionist, then back at her. You have my wallet? He asked, his voice deep and calm. Keisha nodded, pulling it from her pocket and holding it out. Yes, sir. I found it yesterday. Mr. Dapa took the wallet, his fingers brushing hers. He opened it, quickly checking the contents. A faint smile touched his lips. Everything is here. Thank you. That was very honest of you, especially given. He paused, gesturing vaguely at her simple clothes. There's a reward for your honesty. He reached into the wallet, but Keisha shook her head. No, sir. I just wanted to return it. She swallowed, gathering her courage. But there's something else. My mother, she gave me this. Keisha unclasped the thread from her neck and held out the dull bronze pendant. Auntie Nana said, a powerful man, made necklaces like this for his daughters. Mr. Dapa's eyes, which had been resting on the pendant, widened slightly. He took the necklace from her, his thumb tracing the worn edges of the bronze. His gaze sharpened, a complex mix of recognition and something akin to shock. He looked at Keisha's face, really looked at it, as if seeing her for the very first time. What is your mother's name? He asked, his voice quieter now, a new note of urgency in it. Alma, Keisha whispered. Alma Mensa. A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the hum of the air conditioning. Mr. Dapa's hand, still clutching the pendant, trembled almost imperceptibly. His face, once unreadable, now showed a flicker of deep emotion. A sudden, profound recognition. Alma Mensa, he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. He looked from the pendant to Keisha, and then back to the pendant again. This pendant was indeed custom-made. It belonged to my first family. His voice caught. You are Alma's daughter. Keisha nodded, a lump forming in her throat. Mr. Dapa's gaze softened, a profound sorrow entering his eyes. He reached out, slowly, and touched Keisha's cheek, his hand warm against her skin. I never knew, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I never knew Alma had a child. The truth, long hinted at, now stood before her, stark and undeniable. Mr. Kofi Dapa, the powerful man whose wallet she had stolen, was her father. The world, already topsy-turvy, had just been completely upended. What did this mean for Mama? For her? And what would happen now?